Здравствуйте, как дела? Yeah, that's pretty good. Как поживаете? Is that all right too? What does that mean? It's the same? Okay. So we're really happy to be here this morning. To my right is Tom Krcha. I think you know Tom. He's spoken here before. And this morning we're going to be talking about kind of a hands-on session about how you build native extensions for Adobe AIR. And we're going to break it up into two parts. Tom is going to show the iOS part of creating a native extension. I'm going to show a little bit about the Android side. So a little bit about us. Well, I already told you who we are, but Lee Brimelow, if you want to follow me on Twitter, that's probably the best way to get in touch with me, but I'll be around for the rest of the conference as well. And yeah, there's Tom. Look at that smile. He's got a great smile, right? You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Krcha. So the first thing to talk about is why have native extensions at all? So Adobe AIR for mobile has a lot of really good features that allow you to take advantage of the mobile device. It has camera support, accelerometer, all of these different things. But there are definitely situations where AIR doesn't give you the things that you need to create your application. And particularly for game developers, AIR is great, but I need AdMob integration. So this is on Google being able to integrate AdMob advertising. I might want to integrate Game Center support into my iOS game, which is a really important thing to have for a mobile game on iOS. And a huge thing is maybe I want to provide in-game purchases. And this is the ability to, maybe I get the game for free, but as I'm playing the game, I can buy new levels or new things in the game directly from inside of the game. So these are just some of the examples of the types of things that you can build with native extensions. So a native extension is essentially once you build it, it's a single file, an ANE file. And there's a couple of different pieces that go into building this ANE file. First is the native code for the mobile platform. So if you're developing an extension for iOS, this is going to be Obj-C or C code. If you're doing a native extension for Android, it's obviously going to be Java code. If you take that native code piece and you add to it a Actionscript SWIP file, and what this is essentially an interface in Actionscript for talking to that native code piece. So essentially you have these two pieces, the native code piece and the Actionscript SWIP file. You compile these two things together into the ANE file. And that single ANE file you can then use in any of your projects. You can actually distribute it to other developers. And what we're seeing now is actually people starting to sell native extensions, which could be a really good way to make money for you. For instance, somebody just created a Game Center native extension for iOS. So, he's charging $70 US for it. When you consider that it would take you at least, I would say, a couple of days? Yeah. 2 or 3 days to actually build that yourself. $70 is pretty cheap to get this thing already built. So once you've compiled the native extension and you have the ANE file, how do you then use it inside of your AIR-based games? Well, inside of Flash Builder, the new version, which was just released, Flash Builder 4.6, we have built-in support for native extensions now. So you'll notice on the build path window in Flash Builder, we have a new tab for native extensions. And here I can actually link to a native extension file that either I've created or somebody else has created. And just like that, I'll get code hinting for the native extension. I'll get all of that stuff. So really smooth workflow for integrating this. Now, if some of you are building games in Flash Professional and you don't use Flash Builder, well, the next version of Flash Professional will also have built-in support for that. So here you can see the library path window in Flash Professional, and we see this little blue little icon here. This is where I can now link to a ANE file, and I can use it inside of my Flash Professional-based project. So it's going to be really easy for you to incorporate and use these native extensions. So that's it for the slides, and I'm going to hand the projector over to Tom. And so what Tom is going to do now is he's going to start from scratch building a native extension for iOS. And he's promised me that this is going to be amazing. It's going to be the best thing you've ever seen at a conference. That's what he was telling me. But anyway, so this is going to explain the workflow of building a native extension for iOS from scratch.
All right, so hello. So how many of you actually done something with C before, maybe in Xcode? A couple of you. Perfect. So I'm going to be slow. I'm going to be really slow here, so you can like follow me. But if you like are getting lost, just raise your hand and let me know. Okay. So what we're going to do here is that we're basically going to develop some C code in Xcode, and then we're going to create a native extension and use it in Flash Builder 4.6. So first we start with Xcode here. I'm going to open Xcode. We can close this window and just basically start new project. And here you can see that you have iOS. You can build like OpenGL game and so on, you know. But you have here also Cocoa, Touch, static library. So this is what we're going to use. If you go to framework and library, you can see it here. So this is file basically extended by .a, and this is something we're going to use for the whole ANE file. So I just click next. We're going to build basically just a simple alert extension, which is basically looking something like this.
Hey Tom, before you, just to stop you, what's the Wi-Fi password?
FlashGAMM.
That's the password?
Yeah, for FlashGAMM Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So this is something we're going to build, you know, like when you tap the screen, we're going to display this native dialog. Okay? Clear? Perfect. So what we're going to do here is we're going to call it AlertView Extension, like that. Maybe give it some number, or maybe Kyiv, like that. And we're going to hit next here. We're going to save it. And it's basically it. So we've got two files here. One of them is like .h, that's a header file. And it's basically interface, you know, that means like the functions you expose to the public. And then you have a M file, which is like implementation of that. And in M file we consider some init function, we can delete it, and basically start implementing our Objective-C code here. So what you're going to do here is, first of all, we're going to define one function. Plus means like, it means static function, so it's going to be public static function. We're not going to return anything, and we basically call it show. We will just show the alert, okay? And then we will just pass one string. So any string is like a type of string in Objective-C, and then we just pass like text. So this is the function definition, and we're just going to take this, copy paste it here, and do something like that, you know. So right now we have more or less defined the function show. So what else we have to do here is that we have to display the UIKit component called AlertView. So for that, we're just going to import UIKit, which is like a sort of flex for, let's say it's like component library, sort of like flex, you know, and it's called UIKit on iOS. And we import it, and then we basically initialize the AlertView component. So the way it works is that we basically say AlertView, like view, AlertView, and we allocate it in memory. So okay, so it's called UI AlertView, like that. And we basically allocate it like UI AlertView alloc, and then we basically say init with title. We just pass some title. So if you define a string in Objective-C, you gotta use this @ sign, and then we basically say title, and message we pass text. Delegate is gonna be self. Delegate is like all the events you get from the UI from the UIKit, meaning like if you click on OK button, if you click on cancel button, and so on. And self means basically this. So if I hit some button or something, it will basically get me information to my class to Objective-C here. Then we say cancel button, I say like no, and other button titles like yes. Yeah, we got it. So, we just put this here, we compile it, build succeeded, and that's it. And one of the last things we're gonna show the UI AlertView, like that, you know. So now we basically implemented Objective-C part of the component. You know, it's easy as that. So the other step is gonna be here that we have to implement the C interface. You know, because components in native extensions always communicate from Actionscript to C or from Actionscript to Java on Android. So in terms of iOS, you always have to communicate with bridge or interface that is written in C. And from this C code, you can then call like C++ or Objective-C. Alright, so what we're going to do here is I have prepared this extension initializer. It's just a couple lines of code. So I just copy and paste it here. And it basically means that each component has a handler for initialization and for finalization. And the other thing we're going to do here is context initializer and context finalizer.
So this you were writing this from scratch. So he has all this code prepared. See, that was
sort of, you know, to get it fast. You know. All right. So how did I do this? Okay. So we've got context finalizer and context initializer. There are some errors right now, so you can see like we are missing some components, some interfaces. You know. So how are we going to fix this? So the good thing here is that with Flash Builder 4.6, so if you go to Applications, and here you go to Adobe Flash Builder 4.6, SDK folder 4.6 SDK, and here is a folder called Include, you will find a special file called Flash Runtime Extensions.h. There is nothing else you have to do than just drag and drop this file to the folder here, hit finish, and recompile it again, you know, sort of. So once we basically, yeah, I don't know what's happening. Anyway, so what we're going to do next here is implement one of the C functions that is actually exposing everything for our stuff. You know. So let me grab it once more. Okay, I know what I'm missing. So one of the things you cannot forget here is of course imported. You know, that's it. Build succeeded. We're ready. You know.
Do you like Objective-C?
I mean, like I don't know.
I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Just curious. This is like Chinese, you know. So anyway. It's really hard to see here, but there are a couple functions, so let me just go through that again. So you basically initialize the extension using extension initializer, and you finalize the extension. This is when the extension unloads, you know. So you basically clean up all the memory things you like did, you know, and so on. And then you have also context finalizer and context initializer. In context initializer, you define the functions you are exposing for Actionscript API. So here, I'm basically saying I have one function to test, and here I'm basically defining the first function, which is called show. And this function is pointing, this is the pointer side, it's pointing to this show alert C function, from which I am calling Objective-C function. Is it clear? Yeah. It's pretty easy, okay. Perfect. So here I just write like AlertView Extension Kyiv show hello. That's it. So right now, if you look into the folder called products over here, you can see that we have compiled a file called AlertView Extension Kyiv.a. That's a Cocoa Touch static library. So we just right-click here and say Show in Finder. It will find us the extension, and now we have to compile the Actionscript part and the C part together. But first of all, let's get to the Flash Builder 4.6 and see what you have to do from the other side. That means like the Actionscript side to actually call.
You're done with the native part.
I'm basically done with the native part. So it's been like what, 5 minutes, 3 minutes to implement the native function, something like that. Yeah. Yeah? Okay. It's a lot of talking about that. Right, so, but normally it's like 5 minutes if you know what to do. And don't worry, like I have, of course I have included some code you don't probably get right now, but it's really simple. It's like it's some code that you can definitely get from some blogs online. You know? So this is something provided for you. All right, so let's get to the Flash Builder here. And let me close that and basically start new Flex library project, which is called like AlertView Extension Kyiv. And here, don't forget to include Adobe AIR libraries, because we are, of course, working with AIR, and native extensions work only for AIR, so they don't work for Flash Player, you know. So make sure you include these Adobe AIR libraries, because we're going to use them. So you just hit next here, finish, and just open the project here, and basically add the new class here, called AlertView Extension Kyiv, like that. And we basically add one public static function show, and this will just call the native code. And we basically initialize some context, so it's going to be like context, external extension context, which is like the new class that you use for calling the native part, and basically say create extension context with ID. And the extension ID is going to be like, I don't know, maybe GAMM Krcha, AlertView Extension Kyiv. And you can include some type, but we don't do this right now. So right now we have variable, we just create instance variable of that, and we basically check if the context is done. If context is not ready, just make it ready. And the last thing you have to do here in the Actionscript part is just to call the native function using the function called call. Like that. So the function is called show, and that's basically it. So right now we are done with the Actionscript part. You know, like you can see like show here. And when you look in the native code, you can see the show here. So that's basically what is called from the Actionscript part. So now we have two parts. One of them is the Swig library, and the other file is .a library, which is like the native part. So we're just going to combine these two parts together. So I just copy and paste these things together into my folder here. This is the Swig library, and this is the .a library. And what we're going to do here is basically compile it. So right now, there is one missing piece, you know, like in this workflow, and it's the ANE compilation. This is something you gotta do with command line compilation using terminal.
It's not built into Flash Builder 4.6?
No. So, yeah. So what we're gonna do here is compile it manually, you know, and for that, I just want to show you. It's actually pretty simple, but let me show you how that works. If I have this slide, you know. So there is basically one thing you have to do. You target, you call command called ADT. It's part of the Flash SDK, and you call package, and then you target any. You include the any name. This is the native extension, so it can be whatever name .ane. Then you have extension.xml file, which is like a descriptor for the extension, where you say which functions are like finalizer and initializer and so on. And then you like define Swig file. This is the Actionscript library. And then you say which platform you are targeting. So right now we're targeting iPhone ARM processor. And then you have library.swig file, which is basically unzipped Swig library. And then you have like a .a file, which is the native library. So basically combine these two things together using this command from command line terminal. So let's see what we can do here. Let me get back here, and as you can see here, I'm calling in my SDK, which is in applications, Adobe Flash Builder 4.6 SDKs, blah blah blah, then ADT package, and so on. What we basically do here is we basically combine our files together, And I just define here like it's going to be Alert Extension Kyiv, and the Swig library is going to be Alert Extension Kyiv as well. And here is going to be Alert Extension Kyiv as well, and here is going to be Alert Extension Kyiv as well. So basically like that. And I just open terminal here, change directory to this folder. Basically compile it like that, you know. Yeah, okay, so one thing you gotta be aware here, it says the namespace requires Swift version to be 13. So what you have to do here is, so when you go to compiler properties here, you just say Swift version equals 13. Just click OK. And basically copy and paste it back here again. Just compile it like that, you know. For platform, yeah, one thing here.
I don't know, Tom.
Yeah, it's
what's going on?
It's a lot of things. So one thing you gotta do here is this one and this one, you know, like that. Just to compile it, it's done. You know, right now we have native extension. Good. After a couple things, you know, and like the only messy process here is in this command line compilation, but it's something you can solve very easily if you like get into that. It's just one line of code basically. You know. So right now we have compiled this AlertView Extension.ani, and what we gotta do here is start the new project where we're gonna use the ANI file, you know, the ANI library. So we again go to File, New, Actionscript mobile project. And we're gonna say like AlertView Extension Kyiv test, which is gonna be like test file or test application. And we're gonna say, okay, I want to target only Apple iOS. I want to add to be full screen like that. And here, as Lee already showed you, we have a new tab called Native Extensions. You know, so you just go here and basically click this button saying Add Any. I'm gonna browse for that file. It's this one. Basically hit OK, finish, and that's it. You know. So right now we can just call the native extension. So I just say Alert Extension Kyiv show like that. You know. So I can basically compile it right now. So let's see if it's gonna work. As you can see, right now I'm working with the native extension like it was some sort of Swig library, you know, like Actionscript library. So as a developer, using native extensions, it's really easy to use them. You know, it's nothing like you gotta learn something new. You just use the same knowledge you had from before. You know, the only thing here is if you want to build native extensions, you have to like understand the workflow and the native language, of course. You know, but most of us or like our developers will just download some of these extensions online and get an extension and just use it. You know, so it's simple as that. All right, so. If we want to compile that, we'll just go here and say we want to run it on device. The good thing here is that you have two types of compilation for iOS. One of them is like standard compilation, and the other one is like fast. With fast compilation, it is basically interpreting the code, but also when you interpret the code, it's slightly slower, but it compiles like in 2 seconds. So let me show you how it works. And for testing native extensions, you can actually use the interpreting mode. So it's really good. So certificate, I'm going to add certificate here. It's something I prepared from developer Apple.com website. Just hit OK, run it. Yeah, one simple thing here. Last thing we're gonna change here is called like Krcha AlertView Extension 1. It's to run it. Give the password. And here you just like reveal package and finder. This is IPA file. So I'm just going to open organizer in Xcode, drag and drop the file here. It will install on my iPad here. It's installing right now. Yeah, I'm just going to show it like that. So I have it here. And when I click on that, you can see the alert went up, you know, like that. So it's simple as that, you know. So what do you think? Easy? Good? Don't be shy.
That was good, Tom. No, it was. But so this kind of highlights the thing with native extensions is that I would say most game developers don't want to go through the hassle of building their own native extensions. So we're going to see a lot of extensions that are already built that you can either get for free or you can actually buy, so that you can just focus on your game and not have to worry about building these native extensions. If you want to get into building native extensions, you may be able to make some decent money out of it as well. So I wanted to quickly show you a couple of native extensions that people in the community have created. So this game company called Milkman Games has created a great native extension for Game Center. So again, this is something that you buy, and it instantly will add full Game Center support to your iOS games. They also have an AdMob Android extension. So if you want to put AdMob games into your Android games, you can just buy this native extension, boom, just drop it right into your project, and then you can immediately take advantage of all of that. So again, you can either try to build your own native extensions, which is really easy to do. I mean, Tom had to go through that pretty quickly, but it is easy to do. Or you can just take advantage of the stuff that other people have created. All right, so I'm going to show you the Java side now. Now I'm going to focus on completely from scratch. Say you want to make a native extension for Android. So how do you go about doing it? So I'm in Flash Builder 4.6 here. Now the one thing you're going to need, just like Tom had to use, he needed Xcode in order to create the iOS piece of it, you're going to need the Android developer tools from Google in order to do the native Android piece of the extension. So what you can do is actually install that directly into Flash Builder. So you can see I have Flash Builder here, but I also have these additional commands up here that allow me to launch the SDK for Android, open the emulator, create new Android projects. So again, you can install all of these things directly into Flash Builder. Now I'm not going to show you that, but I'll point you to a tutorial at the end about how to get that set up. So what I need to do first is, for my native extension, is to create a new Android project. This is a new Android Java project. So I'm going to go to New, and then I'm going to go into Android and create a new Android project. Now if you've done native Android development before, this is going to be very familiar to you. If you haven't, then it won't be as familiar. So I'm going to my native extension, I'm just going to call it Test ANE. So I'm just going to create a new project, click Next, and now I can choose, based on the different Android SDKs that I have installed on my machine, I can choose which one. I'm just going to target 2.3.3. And here I can give my application name, package name, so I'll just do com Brimelow.test. Now, if your native extension doesn't need to have any Android UI, then you don't need to create an activity. Again, if you're not familiar with native Android, some of this stuff is going to be a little bit confusing. But we can just create a blank Android project here. So I'll click Finish, and now it's jumped over to the Java workspace here in Eclipse. Okay, so like Tom showed you before, he created his Obj-C project, but then he needed to drag that file, that Flash runtimes file, into his project. Well, we need to do the same thing for our Android project. So I'm going to go to the properties for this project, and then under Build Path, I'm going to choose to add an external jar file. And this contains all of the Flash native extension APIs. So I'm just going to say add external jar, and I already have it selected in here, but it's essentially a similar place to where Tom showed you. You go into Flash Builder 4.6, SDKs 4.6.0, lib, Android, and then you see that Flash runtime extensions.jar. So you need to add this jar file to your native Android project. Okay, so one of the major differences between Obj-C and iOS extensions and Java is that yours was all inside of one file, right?
Yeah.
So all of the code for all of this stuff was just inside of one file. In Java, we need to create 3 different class files, but they're very, very simple. So the first thing we have to do is to create a context file. And the context file essentially, because let's say my native extension has a bunch of different things that it can do, like Game Center or things like that, where it's not just one thing like showing an alert. It's all of these different types of functions. And the context file defines what functions are available in this extension. So I'm going to create a new class file, and I'll just call it test context. And this is going to have a superclass of FRE context. So in the Java A&E side of things, all of the classes for native extensions start with FRE. And then I'm going to click Finish. And now you can see the class has already been stubbed out for me here. So what I need to do is for each of the functions that I'm going to have in my native extension, I need to define those things here. So I need to create a hashmap property. So I'm going to call it map.
It's basically the same thing we did before when you were defining the array of functions that are available and exposed to your Actionscript code here.
Yeah. So essentially I've created this new hash map, and inside of there I need to put all of the functions that I'm going to be defining for this native extension. So I'm only going to do one, and all I have to say is map.put, and then there's 2 things that I need. I need the string name of the function that I want to call in my native extension, and this can be anything that you want. I'm just going to call it test. And then the next is a new instance of that function file. Now we haven't actually created this yet, but what I'm going to do is to create a new class called test function, like that. And now I can just do a quick fix on this to create that class. And again, for this we have an interface of FRE function. So now this, inside of this class, inside of this call method, this is where we do all of our, all of our native code to do things in our extension. So it could be anything from popping up a native alert to vibrating the phone, whatever your extension needs to do. So again, I'm not going to fill anything in here now, but this is where you actually put the actual meat of your function. And the last thing I have to do is just to return that map that I created. Okay, so I have the context file and I have the function file. So the last thing I need to create for the native extension is the main extension file. And that's just, ridiculously easy. So all I do is to create a new class, and I'll just say test extension, like that. And this is going to have an interface of FRE extension. So this is the main class file for my native extension. So okay, we have all of this stub code here, but all we need to do is to return a new instance of that context file that we created. So just say return new test context, like that. So you don't even have to understand what any of this code means, because, well, it would help. But, you know, a lot of this code is just kind of stub code. The real part of the native extension is just what's inside of here, inside of this call method. And inside of this, we can do anything that we can do in native Android. We can do things like popping up a native Android window over the top of our AIR game. We can use native Android UI components. Anything that you want to do, you can do just by writing the code inside of here. So now, obviously this native extension, it doesn't really do much, but let's say that we're finished with this. So what we need to do is to create a jar file from this. We need to export this as a jar file. And for that, we just right-click on our project and say Export, Java jar file. And you can just leave everything at the default here, and you can just browse for wherever you want to save that. I'm just going to save it to the desktop as first ane.jar. And I can click Finish. So now it's actually on the desktop. I have my jar file right here. So again, now the process from here is the same thing that Tom showed you. You need to then go and create an Actionscript SWIC interface to actually to interface between the native code and your project, and then you compile the ANE. So again, that's all there is to do from the Java side of things. Now, I did want to show you really quickly.
So people often ask, like, what can you pass in between, like, the marshalling code? That means, like, from Actionscript to native code. So basically, you can pass, like, strings, integers, numbers, float. You can pass array, bitmap data, and byte array. So basically everything, like back and forth. So basically, like, if you have a look at the Dutch apps from Adobe, they're actually built in Adobe AIR. Like most of them. And if you look like at Photoshop Dutch, that's actually Adobe AIR application which is using these native extensions for image processing, for instance. So
what guys basically, So what guys basically did is that they took they basically took the C library they had for normal Photoshop you have on desktop, like on Mac and Windows, and basically built a C library, like a native library for iOS and Java. So they can basically. So then you can access filters like, I don't know, like at levels and so on.
Well, like all the filters, from normal Photoshop, you can basically expose to Adobe AIR application as well. So they basically reuse the legacy code someone wrote before. And that's really nice about it. And when talking about native extensions for Android, you can also write them in two different languages. One is Java, as Lee showed you. But you can also write native extensions for Android in C, like native, using native development kit, right? So if you really want like to build C++ library for AIR for Android, you can do that as well.
I'm just playing with the Deco tool.
Yeah, you like it?
I like the Deco tool.
You like it?
Yeah. So I really want to show you this. This is the next version of Flash Professional. And just show you how you can actually incorporate an ANE file into this. So let's say I'm building my game in Flash Professional and I want to use an ANE that Tom has created because that alert one was so cool. I have to have that. So he's going to send me the ANE file, and then I just go to my Actionscript settings, and under Library Path, we can see we have this new button here, Browse to a Native Extension ANE file. And from that, I can actually, and this is actually the AdMob native extension that I have. So I can select that, open it, and now it's actually a part of my, my build path. So I'm going to get full code hinting for this, and I can just, as just an Actionscript developer, I don't have to know anything about Obj-C or native Android stuff. Because again, somebody else has created that native extension for me. So that's a cool thing. Now, you want to show? I think we have. Oh, how much time we have left?
10 minutes.
Wow.
Perfect. So we've got quite some time. So give me.
But let's. So tomorrow we're doing a session which is going to be, I would say, is going to be a lot more fun. which is actually showing you some really cool new 3D and 2D technology that Adobe is working on. Maybe you should just sneak one of those little demos.
A little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit, because this was kind of, it was boring and geeky, and you know, who wants to hear about native extensions at 10 o'clock in the morning? You know? So thank you for sitting here. It was, so yeah, you want to show it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got two things to show you here. So first of all, I guess everybody here in this room is a game developer, right? Is it like that?
Yep.
Cool.
Duh. It is like that. That's my Russian.
Cool. So it's perfect. So most of developers are using physics, right? Like Box 2D and so on, like for 2D games, and maybe Bullet Engine for 3D games. And I've been working on a concept of physics native extension for iOS for Box 2D, you know. Because there are three things you want to do with native extensions. So, like, first of all, it's to tap into some platform-specific code like gyroscope, or doing some platform-specific things like inner part chase and so on. The second thing is using the legacy code. That means the code someone wrote before in C, for instance, or C++. Here. And there are like 6 billion lines of open source code online, you know. So it really makes sense to use some sort of legacy code that someone wrote before. And the third thing is like performance, you know. So if you really want to get the best performance in our Adobe AIR applications, like for physics or for like cryptographic image processing and so on, you know. So I was like, okay, there is Box 2D library for Actionscript, but a native one. First of all, it contains a couple more functions compared to the Actionscript one, and second of all, it's native, right? So let me show you how that actually looks like. It's just a quick preview of what you can do, for instance, with native extensions on iOS. So this is running Adobe AIR, and the physics are processed in native, you know, so in C. And you can start adding boxes like till 100, you know. Actually tapping here, you know, stuff. Automatics, like that, you know. You can add boxes, you know. And you can see it's running like 60 frames per second. And you basically add boxes like that, you know. So you really get like best performance out of the physics here, you know, because physics is processed natively on iOS. So I basically took the C++ library of Box 2D, compiled it, built an interface for that, compiled it for my AIR application, and basically exposed the API for this application. That's it, you know. What do you think, guys? Is it cool? Amazing.
But I think you have something else you can show, right?
Sure. So for tomorrow, I want to show you a sneak peek of something you will be really happy about, I guess.
Yeah. So you know, obviously, you know, Stage 3D is, you know, it's now out there in Flash Player 11. People are doing really amazing stuff with it on the desktop. But the question we get over and over and over again, and I'm sure a lot of you will ask us this question too, is when are we going to be able to have it on mobile? Because everybody wants to be able to use Stage 3D so that you can get really high performance for games on mobile. So we're making really good progress on that. We hope it's going to be out, you know, fairly soon. But we have a couple of new demos that Tom, I think you can show it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So as you know, with Stage 3D, you can build 3D and 2D games as well, right? So I'm going to show you one 2D game that's running ridiculously fast. So let's check it out, okay? Yeah. So it's called Waste Invaders. It's nice music and everything here. So this is running on my iPad. What do you think? Good?
Yeah, I mean that performance is amazing, considering how much stuff is actually going on the screen there.
So as you can see, it's like 60 frames per second in the corner.
It's a pretty easy game because there's no way to die.
Yeah, I like it. On my the child dreams come true here.
Yeah. I can't concentrate. So you can see the performance we now have on Stage 3D is getting really, really good. In fact, the work that we're doing still is just trying to make it fast, the same speed across all platforms. But I'm happy to say that the fastest platform that we have right now is iOS. So if you have to be fastest on one, it's probably, well, at least for me anyway, that's the more important one to make sure you're the fastest on. But again, that's why there's been a delay in releasing Stage 3D on mobile, is that we're trying to do a lot of work to make sure that on Android and with any of the platforms, it's going to run at that same speed. So we're going to show a lot more about this tomorrow in our session. I'm going to focus on 2D games with Stage 3D. Tom's going to focus on 3D, and then we're going to show a lot more demos and stuff. So I don't know. Do we do Q&A or is that possible or no? Anybody have any questions about the? Is anybody going to make a native extension now, or is that just yeah? Yeah.
Если у кого-то есть вопросы на русском, можете задавать, есть переводчик, который их переведет.
And the other thing, we'll be around the whole conference, so feel free to
yeah, come to us, talk to us, like don't be shy.
Come to Tom and talk to Tom. He loves it.
We can get a beer or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, thanks for coming. I hope to see you tomorrow at our session tomorrow. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
If you have any questions right now, maybe we have like 2 minutes to answer like two, 3 questions. Like we're open. I see a hand over there. Cool.
Will we see all this stuff on GoToLand.com?
Yeah, so I think I did a tutorial on.
Yeah, you can get.
Yeah, so I think
I
think I've done one tutorial already on native extension, not on the iOS part. I'll probably.
I can maybe do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll post it after we return back from Kyiv. I'll post the code and everything so you can yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, all the stuff we showed, the native extension stuff, we'll post to our blogs because it was too fast. We had to go through it really fast. So, any other questions? No. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom Lee.